I can't stay long for this one. I have to head out, but I did want to give you guys a heads up on what is currently taking place in Iowa. So basically, what it boils down to is the Iowa results are riddled with inconsistencies, errors. In some cases, it seems like too many people voted. The AP, Associated Press, CNN itself, New York Times, all of these organizations make the point that it is almost impossible to know who actually won this particular contest. And yet, apparently the Iowa Democrats don't know that because they're trying to allocate Pete Buttigieg 14 delegates, a win in a race that is impossible to know who won. What we do know is that Sanders got more votes. I mean, even under their own guidelines, Sanders got 6,000 more votes. But they are allocating, or they're at least trying to allocate, this number of delegates to Buttigieg. To make this even worse, Iowa comes out. The IDP chair, Tony Price, sent an internal email that the party attorney says any re-examination of the precinct results cannot change the results on caucus math worksheets, even if they are wrong. Let me repeat that. Iowa Democratic Party Chair Tony Price sent an internal email that the party attorney says any re-examination of the precinct results cannot change the results of the caucus math worksheets, even if they are wrong. Now, the Sanders camp is not taking this lying down. And Sanders' campaign manager came out and said this.
Gary is the campaign manager for the Bernie Sanders 2020 presidential campaign. Faz, thank you so much for joining us, especially on a short notice. The first question I have for you, Faz, is we're in a situation now where your campaign still has the ability to ask for a canvass of even specific precincts, as I understand it, by 1 o'clock Eastern tomorrow. Do you plan on doing that given the results that we saw here tonight?
Yes, Ryan, you can expect us to be asking the Iowa Democratic Party for a recanvass of the discrepancies that we have identified and found for them. We will be searching for and identifying even more. It's been handled incompetently from our perspective, and we will be asking them to take a look at some of these obvious discrepancies that have affected our count. And I think after it's all said and done, it should be the case that we have the same number of national delegates as Pete Buttigieg. So we'll see how this plays out, Ryan, but you can expect some action from the Sanders campaign tomorrow.
Basically, by 1 p.m. today, or before 1 p.m. today, the Sanders camp is contesting the results of various precincts. Many of the precincts Sanders identified saying, wait a minute, these were wrong, these were fraudulent. And their basic argument is an honest recounting of this will show that we won, and the delegate math will most likely be equal. He goes further, something that warms my heart, and I think is necessary, especially considering the way Iowa is, the way Iowa looks, the influx of calls and messages that their campaign have been getting of protecting the vote, especially in places like Nevada, that's going to use an app that is trying to gaslight people into believing it is a tool, especially after the Iowa debacle. He has to say that. He has to do that. He makes the point right there, we're going to fight for every delegate that's out there. Meaning we're not just going to let this skate. We're going to go out and we're going to fight and we're going to push hard to get every delegate that we deserved. And again, fact of the matter is the notion that the Democratic Party is awarding delegates in a race like this is extraordinary. And even more so that the guy that got supposedly 6,000 more votes even on their own counting of events, that Buttigieg gets more delegates. Nonsense. The fact that every newspaper comes out and says this election result, I'm using the term fraudulent, but they're essentially saying so dodgy that you can't choose a winner. And the DNC says, yeah, screw that, or the Iowa Democrats, screw that, we're still going to award a winner. We can't change the caucus results, even if the results are wrong. He is pushing for a recanvass of various districts. I would argue you should push to expunge the Iowa vote total entirely. You don't know who won. It is difficult to know, if not impossible to know who won. The newspaper recounts that some of the votes were even lost, where you can't figure out who the people were going for. And even when they were trying to award the state delegate equivalents, even the math was somewhat haphazard. I would argue that if you did an analysis of this, it would probably end up showing a bias towards Pete. If Sanders want to call it incompetent, fair enough. I'm just making the point that you can't award votes if you don't necessarily know who won, especially in a fair contest. Nobody said this was a fair contest, though, right? It not being a fair contest is not a reason to be disenchanted or to be pushed down. Fact of the matter is they tried to steal it. They got caught. Sanders' camp was on the watch. And I would argue that the way to deal with this is to vote in such overwhelming numbers that they can't steal it. If you put 10 points on the board over the other competitor, I'm sorry, they could steal it, but it's going to be extremely clear that they did, and that will be the end of the Democratic Party. Meaning the point is, you should make them steal it, make them rig the shit out of it, make them make a choice of we both go down together, but you're not just going to steal it outright without there being consequences. And yeah, we're going to put so many points on the board that it is just going to be clear that you are trying to steal it. Iowa is extremely clear that they are trying to steal it and gets across the Democratic perspective of events. Again, Tom Perez, all of the errors, all of the failures, Tom Perez didn't get involved into this race until Pete Buttigieg gave him a call, and it looked like Sanders was going to take it because those black folks at the satellite districts were voting for Sanders. So that should give you a perspective. Tom, with Bill Clinton touching him on the shoulder with the rape hand, don't let Sanders take the party, Perez. Who do you think he is going to represent in this contest? I think you already know that. Sanders pushing back. They're calling for a recanvass today that is supposed to take place before 1 p.m. meeting to call for it to contest the results. Like, share, subscribe. Thanks all.